Good morning and welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at MarketSite is Jeff Kilburg. He is the founder and CEO of KKM Financial. Thank you very much for joining me in New York today.
Thank you, Jill.
So great to have you here on set with us. So tell us about Essential 40 and why you consider it the modern Dow Jones Industrial Average.
Well, Jill, we get really excited about this portfolio. The modern day Dow Jones is what we call it. And it is very similar as a representation of the economy. But to go back to Peter Lynch, you remember Peter Lynch?
Of course.
The mogul in the 1980s. His portfolio was buy what you know. This is a little step further. This is buy what you use. So these 40 names are essential to the American way of life. And how it's different than the current price-weighted Dow Jones. Obviously, last year, a tremendous year for the Dow Jones. We saw Boeing as well as Goldman Sachs nearly 10%. So as momentum moves in that, obviously, in a year like 2017, when you have those type of gains, that capitalizes and exponentially grows. But we're anti-momentum. We're equally weighted, and every year we rebalance the Essential 40 portfolio. So therefore, we're selling our winners and buying our losers.
So is the composite of the Essential 40 similar to that of the Dow Jones? How's it a little bit different?
You know, it is a little bit different. We have a nice representation, and think of the Essential 40 as a more thoughtful sector exposure. So it's a quantitative model as well as a qualitative model. So the quantitative model is really drawn in personal consumption GDP, trying to understand, Jill, where we are hitting on all cylinders in the economy. Give that more thoughtful sector exposure, and then those names we drill down, the Microsofts, the Verizons, the JP Morgan, the Facebooks, the Amazon, all these names that we use as Americans, even the CME group.
It's really interesting to see that you have such a mixture of names in there, and it's very different than what the Dow is.
It is.
Maybe to have an Amazon, to have a JP Morgan within the same portfolio is super interesting. So it sounds like it's a large cap core holding portfolio, right?
Absolutely.
How often do you rebalance this?
So we will rebalance it the second Monday of every year. So we're tax sensitive. It's a tax sensitive portfolio, but it truly is a large cap blend strategy, part of your core holding. And what we feel different is that if you don't have one of these 40 names in your portfolio, you are bleep. Right? So we get really excited that this is an essential, this thematic conversation about owning names that you know. So when we do see markets going into distress, a lot of people call up their advisor and say, what's in my portfolio? I don't understand that. Sell that. These 40 names are all names that we know and, more importantly, use, Jill.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us at MarketSite. And traders, thank you for joining me throughout the day. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.